This is a course, a version of which I've taught almost every year for the last 20 years, and it evolves a little bit every year. I think I get a little bit better at it, so hopefully you'll get some advantage from that experience. But the idea is to try to present to you sort of what's exciting about biomedical engineering, the ways that one can take science and mathematics and apply that to improve human health. And so I'm not working alone here, but we have three teaching fellows who are affiliated with the course, two of which are here today. Yen Ku is back there. Yen, raise your hand higher so everyone can see. Yen worked on the course last year, and so she's the senior of the teaching fellows that are working on the course this year. Serge Kobsa is in the back. And he'll be the second teaching fellow. I should mention that Yen is a PhD student in biomedical engineering, and Serge is an MD PhD student who's getting his PhD in biomedical engineering. The third teaching fellow couldn't make it today. His name is Michael Look, and I'll introduce him to you when he's available. So this is the goal for my first lecture today, to try to answer these questions. And you might have already noticed that I'm using the class's V2 server. So the syllabus is there. I'm going to go over the syllabus a little bit later, but the syllabus is available online. The first reading is available online, and I'll talk more about the readings when I get to that portion of the lecture here. And I'm going to post PowerPoints for all the lectures, hopefully at least the day before the lecture takes place. So I posted this last night. Some students find that they benefit from printing out the PowerPoints, and they can just take their notes along with the slides as I go, and that's one way to do it, but feel free to do it whatever way works for you, but those should be available. So the questions I want to try to answer today are, what is biomedical engineering? So why would you be interested in spending a semester learning about this subject? I'll talk about who will benefit from the course, and a little bit about sort of the detailed subject matter that we'll cover in the course of this semester. So to answer the question, what is biomedical engineering, we're going to spend time on that today, and we'll spend time on Thursday. And I want to approach it from a couple of different angles. One is by just showing you a series of pictures which you might recognize, and talk about why this is an example of biomedical engineering. And so this is one picture that probably you all know what it is when you see it. It's a familiar looking image. It's something that probably we all have some personal experience with, right? This is a chest X-ray that would be taken in your doctor's office, for example, or a radiologist's office. And it is a good example of biomedical engineering in that it takes a physical principle, that is, how do X-rays interact with the tissues of your body, and it uses that physics, that physical principle, to develop a picture of what's inside your body. So to look inside and see things that you couldn't see without this device. And you'll recognize some of the parts of the image. You can see the rib cage here, the bones. You can see the heart is this large, bright object down here. If you're have good eyesight from the distance that you're at, you can see the vessels leading out of the heart and into the lungs, and the lungs are these darker spaces within the rib cage. And physicians over the years of having this instrument have learned how to be very sophisticated about looking at these pictures and diagnosing when something is wrong inside the chest, for example. So this is an example of biomedical engineering, one that is well integrated into our society to the point that we've probably all got a picture like this somewhere in our past, and where we understand the physical principles that allow us to use it. We've gotten, over the last 2 decades in particular, very sophisticated about taking pictures inside the body, allowing doctors to look inside the body and predict things about our internal physiology that they couldn't predict just by looking at us or putting their hands on us. And this image on the top here is another example of an imaging technique. This is a positron emission tomograph, or PET image, and it's taken by using radionuclides and injecting them into you, so radioactive chemicals that interact with tissues in your body in a specific way. And you can see where those radioactive chemicals go. And it allows us to look not just at the anatomy of what's going on inside your body, like an X-ray does, but to look at the chemistry, the biochemistry of what's happening inside a particular organ or tissue in your body. In this case, these are pictures of the brain. And this has been an exceptionally important technique in understanding how molecules like neurotransmitters affect disease and how they change in certain disease states in people. And we'll talk about this as another example of biomedical engineering, this advanced methods for imaging inside the body. Well, this third picture you can't probably see too much about, but you probably recognize what it is, right? Where was this picture taken? What kind of a space was it taken in? Somebody said OR, or operating room, and that's right. This is a picture in an operating room. And operating rooms, if you went into any operating room around the country, you would see lots of examples of instruments that are used to help surgeons, anesthesiologists, to keep the patient alive and healthy during the course of a surgery. And this particular one down here, this portion here, is a heart-lung machine. And this is a machine that can take over the function of a patient's heart and lungs during the period when they're undergoing open heart surgery, for example. If they're having a coronary artery bypass or they're having a heart transplant, then there's some period at which their normal heart, their heart is stopped, and this machine assumes the functions of their heart. And this is, I think, an obvious example of biomedical engineering, building a machine that can replace the function of one of your organs, even temporarily, for example, during an operation. This is another familiar picture. I purposely picked one that looks sort of old-fashioned compared to the usual way you see this, which might be on the nightly news. You see a bleep going across the screen to indicate that they've got their finger on the pulse of what's happening. Or you see it at TV shows like ER. You see these images on computer screens all the time. It's an example of an EKG, or an ECG, an electrocardiograph. It's a machine that also looks inside your body, but looks inside in a different kind of way. Rather than by forming an image or a picture, you put electrodes on the surface of the body and measure the electrical potential as a function of position on the body. And it turns out that the electrical potential, or electricity that you can measure on the surface of the body, reflects things that are happening deeper inside, like the beating of your heart. And if you put the electrodes in the right position and you measure in the right way, you can detect the electrical activity of the heart and record it on a strip recorder like this one shown here, or display it on a computer. And so this is another example of biomedical engineering where you can look at the function of a heart in a living person, and a physician who's experienced at looking at these and a machine that works well, with those two things you can diagnose a lot of things that are happening inside a heart. And we'll talk about that about halfway through the course.